Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm recording. I look good. I got my shirt on. I got Space Invaders on. Let's go. Got a clapperboard, y'all. Oh. You can tighten the screws. Anyways, it's empty. Okay. Sup, y'all? March is also a month, dude. Let's talk about some stuff. Dune, the 2021 sci-fi film directed by Denis Villeneuve, based on the book by Frank Herbert. Otherworldly sound design, ruthless mastering, and stellar visual effects, entrancing, enigmatic, symbolically striking, Dune not only captures the details but the very essence of the legendary 1965 sci-fi epic. I think this is a movie that I've seen most times in the cinema, and there's a very good reason for it because the cinema experience and the cinema sound enhances this movie so much. It's such a visceral, punching experience when you get to listen to it with proper speakers, because Hans Zimmer's score and the mastering of the film and how the sound envelops the whole narrative is so good. The visual effects, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about the sand screens where they didn't use green screens, but actually like screens that were the color of the sand, which is a technical detail because there's like color bleed from when you anyways, it's not that important, but like the visual effects are also stunning. The ornithopters, man, do they look amazing, and the design is great. I studied this film while I was at uni as an incredible example of production design for the actual look of the movie. Also, the casting of all the characters is so spot on of the descriptions and the vibes and the feeling of all the characters in the book. The only thing that has stood out to me after watching it so many times is maybe the pacing is a little bit just off. It feels like it might be too rushed at some points. I really like this movie. I mean, I wouldn't see it so many times in the cinema if I didn't love it. I'm giving it a 92 and a gold ribbon. I mean, this is great. I mean, yeah. E-MO-TION, the 2015 pop album by Carly Rae Jepsen. If I was given the lyrics written on a piece of paper, I would be cringing. But Jepsen's delivery totally sells the emotion on most songs, and whereas the worst of the album is still fine, its several front-loaded bops are punchy and vibrant and carried by amazing hooks. Some samples and sounds are really catchy and like exactly what you want from a pop album. It is a bit campy. I mean, I did say that the lyrics they can be very cheesy. The production is solid, but it's nothing really to write home about. The songwriting is formulaic, but it's mostly really good. Run Away With Me, Emotion, and Boy Problems I think are my favorites from the album, and then I Really Like You and Give Me Love are pretty good. Yeah, I'm giving this a 77 out of 100 and a silver ribbon. It's not amazing, but it's solid. It's a fun album. 12 Angry Men, the 1957 film directed by Sidney Lumet and written by Reginald Rose. Fiercely written, performed with absolute resolve, and directed with focus paramount, this dense, tense, and condensed magnum opus efficiently, effortlessly, and organically constructs character to such a meta-faithful degree of poignancy and realness that you can't help but completely lose yourself in the dialogue. Guys, you know there's some movies that you watch and you just question your favorite movies that you've ever seen because this one that you watched like is a contender to be one of those. Yeah. The narrative structure flows so smoothly and seemingly naturally. The camera work is subtle but powerful, and the environment and the evolving nature of the environment parallels the narrative arc so well. It not only reflects how the events build upon each other and develop, but it amplifies it by adding points of tension from the environment, like not only from the characters themselves. I'm not sure who it was, I think it was David Fincher, who said that he likes when the opening shot of the film sets the precedent for how much attention you should be paying throughout the movie. And the opening shot of this film, the opening 3 scenes of this film are such a cinematic flex. This film holds up to all standards. The 3rd scene is a continuous 3-minute oneer. All of the actors completely nail their mark, and it's so good. There's this sort of sentiment that you can put something in the background or you can focus on it, and depending on that, your enjoyment of it might change. But I think a mark of really great works is that you can put it on and sort of catch the important bits and still have an enjoyable time. But also, if you pay close attention, you'll be rewarded even more from all the details you find. And this is a movie that really does both. I think the general arc and the story of it is really interesting and really rewarding to watch and substantial, but the details are also really interesting and really meaningful. And why I say meta-faithful is I think it captures the very essence of the situation and the narrative. It doesn't feel like it might be one of the situations that occurs or one of the events that unfold, but the event that is unfolding. There's nothing that could be left unsaid or could be added to the story. I think the term is reductive. There's nothing you can take away from it, and anything more would be just noise. Guys, this is a 99 out of 100 and a gold ribbon. Of course it's a gold ribbon, dude. It's so good. Knife Man, the 2011 indie folk punk album by AJJ. Ugly and critically unfiltered, Knife Man encapsulates social paranoia that so many of us try to digest quietly with a very raw and genuine sound. The lyrics are really enjoyably disgusting, weird, disturbing, and really jadedly beautiful. I think there's a beauty to him admitting to such jadedness, because admitting to the jadedness almost counteracts or is an antidote to the jadedness, because there's a sense of desperation against the jadedness. There's an innocent child behind these words that just wants to not feel this way anymore. Backpack. Guys, actually, let's get serious. Backpack is gut-wrenching, soul-crushingly heartbreaking song. I feel like I could cry every time I hear it. It's so deep and so personal. It's so emotional. It's so, desperate, I think, is one of the recurring motifs of the album. And there's a very idiosyncratic feeling of anxiety to the album that it more so presents rather than creates out of thin air. It makes you feel like the anxiety has always been there, and this way that it's presenting it to you feels, what's the word? Like a readjustment, like a readjusted perspective on the anxiety, if that makes sense. I'm giving this a 93 and a gold ribbon. Yeah. Thomas Was Alone, the 2012 puzzle platformer game by Mike Bithell. Its simplicity is an understatement to the depth of existential meaning it succeeds in conveying. Its design elegance more than makes up for any musical or mechanical jank, and its utilization of the implicit human tendency to projection and personification is pure genius. This game really makes you wonder how susceptible you are to suggestion. The world building is very intriguing, and it's really strange to say that there is world building in a game where you only control rectangles in various ways on a world built on other, the platforms are also rectangles. It's just a rectangle game, man. But there's so much implied depth, and because it is so short, it doesn't overstay its welcome at all. The vibe and writing are really good. I think it is interesting how much the narrative or the narrator just adds by just being there and talking to you about these rectangles. The premise is astoundingly effective. It's a character design benchmark, which is, again, we're right, they're rectangles, man. The sound design of the characters is really good. The general puzzles are okay, but the character relationship it implicitly conveys are the soul of this game. And there's these brilliant little details of character that imply so much depth to the characters. The second to last level finale implies something about a character that you didn't even consider, and it implies so much with just one little detail. Sticking to walls doesn't really feel good. When you jump to a wall, you kind of stick to it, and that really doesn't feel good. I think the music transitions are oh my god, they're just so... The music transitions feel like somebody's banging on your ears. It just feels so cacophonous, but definitely not in a good way. Although I think the actual songs of it, the music of the soundtrack is good, but just the transitions feel grating to your ears. And some of the puzzles are kind of fiddly. There's a particular unpolished feel to some of the levels, but that doesn't take away from the genius of it. I'm giving this a 91 and a gold ribbon. It has this classic reputation, and for very good reason, and it's short, so why not just give it a try? People Who Aren't There Anymore, the 2024 indie pop album by Future Islands. Sweet and lusciously produced with eclectically dramatic deliveries and ethereal instrumentals, it's not overly innovative, but it's consistent and enjoyable. That's basically it. I had fun, but it's not a particularly insane album. There's a vibe that it's going for, and it's really good at getting to that vibe. And there's this drama that it sort of has. It reminds me of 2022's Raw Data Feel by Everything Everything. There's that sort of melodrama that it conveys, but it has a little bit of that indie, not lo-fi. It's a little bit of 80s warmth to it with the production. So yeah, it's just really, it's good. It's good. It's 83 out of 100 and a silver ribbon. So Plastic Death, the 2024 prog indie rock album by Glass Beach. Grand, progressive, and multidimensional, the emotions and moods on this art rock album range from mathematically destructive to romantically nostalgic, but it's consistently sonically full and bold. It reminds me of Group Therapy's I Was Young for My Age that I reviewed last month. It's sort of this amalgamation of different genres. It produces like tangents to sort of put you in a new direction of stuff you want to listen to. Like, there's a lot of Radiohead on it, and me personally, I haven't listened to a lot of math rock or emo or metal, but there's like songs that really pick out and encapsulate some of those genres. I think Slip Under the Door is one of those where it's just like, it's like screamo. And I love this album. I think it's so forward thinking, it's so experimental, not in terms of like expanding the musical landscape to an extent, but the band is just so comfortable with themselves that they can experiment towards different genres, and that energy is definitely conveyed, and their excitement to play all these songs is like captured on the album, and I really enjoyed it. I know I like the term virality, but I mean come on, if you like Whalefall or The Killer, you'll probably like Radiohead, or if you like Puppy, you'll like indie and emo stuff. My favorites from the album are Coelacanth, Slip Under the Door, Puppy, and The CIA. I think those four are really like stand out, really good songs. Dudes, I'm giving this a 90 and a gold ribbon. I love this. I love this. The Crew, The Quest for Planet 9, the 2019 co-op card game designed by Thomas Singh. Its widely approachable, replayable, and increasingly challenging puzzle balances deduction with just the right amount of risk, which makes it feel that much more rewarding and satisfying when your team's chemistry proves superior. There's an aversion from me to review multiplayer games or board games because they depend so much on the crowd you're playing it with. But I feel very confident with this game because it just stood the test of both time and different people. Like, I could play this with all of my gaming groups at any point, and all of them will have a nice time. To give you a bit of background, it's a silent co-op trick-taking game, and that just means that the round goes by all of you playing cards to the middle of the table, and then one of the person, depending on which card they play, wins that collection of cards. And that's basically it, but the mechanics of how you do that and why you would be doing that is super interesting and really nice take on the trick-taking genre. If you're from Croatia, Bella is one of the like examples of a trick-taking game. I beat all 50 levels with a couple of friends in 2 days. It was a lot of gaming. I think total it took us around 7 to 8 plus hours or something, but it gave me a new perspective on the whole campaign. And I can tell you, the campaign, even playing that intensely and that like bingey, is really good and really entertaining and really fun, and the difficulty progresses really well. There's a sentiment with game design that you progressively add more and more difficulty and introduce new mechanics. While there's not a bunch of mechanics that it introduces, the ones that it does feel super fresh because they are so fairly rare, and the base sort of puzzle that it sets increases in difficulty, and it again is really fun. The campaign flavor is cute but still intriguing and doesn't like pander to it that it's like cutesy. It feels like a 9-year-old would totally understand the campaign, but to me as a 22-year-old, I was like, yeah dude, we're past Uranus? Hell yeah. No, the art is good and appealing, but feels sort of unrelated to the mechanics of the game, which is why the sequel is set in another thing that has people and a captain. It's affordable and, in my opinion, absolutely worth trying, if only for its co-op gimmick and mechanic. I'm giving this a 92 and a gold ribbon. I was considering a lower score, but just how little barrier to entry there is to this game it makes it a staple of game nights. Heat, the 1995 neo-noir crime drama film written and directed by Michael Mann. Gripping and unsettlingly real, it's pretty easy to get lost in the sauce if you don't pay close attention to the many premeditated details, but even if you do get lost, the greater narrative arc is still impactful and poignantly pitying. I do like the word poignantly. This film's a lot. It's 3 hours of non-stop action and like lingo that it's really hard to follow at certain points. I sort of made a mini game for myself while I was watching the movie of just like trying to, when you watch films that like the characters dive and you hold your breath to see if you can hold your breath as long as the character does. This film's version of that is trying to remember all of the information the characters get through phone calls without fucking writing anything down. Nobody in this movie writes anything down, and I'm amazed by how much stuff they can remember. Because I definitely fucking couldn't, dude. This guy gets an 8-digit number, and he's like, yeah. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, sorry, can you repeat? No, please, can you repeat? Sorry, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, can you please repeat the third digit, please? And then the fourth and the fifth, and then the sixth, seventh, and eighth digit, please? Please. Dude, please. It's ridiculous. There is a lot of really disturbing and uncensored scenes, and it definitely can be difficult to watch at points. It is impressive how many different storylines it manages to put in its runtime, even though it is quite long. The characters do feel fleshed out most of the time, even though sometimes with just the amount of characters, you're just like, oh, wait, who's that guy? There's implied depth, but the implications are sort of up there. I've also read that the shootout scene is like incredibly realistic and is taught at like police and army academies, but I have a very difficult time believing that policemen would open fire in the street amongst civilians with fucking shotguns. I don't know. I feel like more precautions would be taken, even if it's more so for the logistical consequences rather than the crushing emotional guilt of shooting a civilian. But I'm not a fucking policeman, so I can't vouch. It just, to me, it felt incredibly unrealistic, even though apparently it's super realistic, so I don't know what to tell you. But in general, it's really tense and really striking, and the performances are really captivating and gripping, and it's very easy to continue fantasizing about this vibe that the film creates. So it was a really enjoyable experience. I'm giving this an 84 and a silver ribbon. It's a solid film. Long Season, the 1996 progressive rock album by Fishmans. Magical and melancholic beyond words, sounds of Long Season evolve like nature and human connection. The more I listen to this album, the more I just completely fall in love with it. There's a picturesque quality to the luscious emotion that it invokes in me, and the sort of persistently optimistically melancholic nature of it. It's so bright, it's so wonderful, it's so beautiful, it's onomatopoeic. That's such a good fucking word. It's quaint yet grand. There's just so much love I have for this album, and it's additive. The more I listen to it, the more love I have for this. It's very unique. It's very, very, very unique in its style, in its vibe, in its mood, in its approach to production, songwriting, to sonic textures. It's so charming. It's just amazing. It's just beautiful, man. I'm giving this a 98 and a gold ribbon. And again, this is one of those background albums that reward you for attentive listening. But if you just have this on in the background while you're cooking, I guarantee you that you will have a better time cooking. Or doing anything for that matter. Sicario, the 2015 thriller film written by Taylor Sheridan and directed by Denis Villenueve. Brutal and dark, the power play of legality and lawlessness is diluted to a black grayness where the good guy is just the lesser demon. Technically and artistically, this film is totally consistent and completely immersive. I think Roger Deakins, as a director of photography, does a lot about it, and Johan Johansson's soundtrack is sublime. It adds so much depth to the film, and the way the cinematography and the soundtrack mesh is just amazing. Mwah. Chef's kiss. Benicio del Toro, Emily Blunt, and Josh Brolin deliver such stunning performances. Its seriousness, dedication to the theme, and focus is the reason I revere Denis Villeneuve so much. It is a bit convoluted and obtuse with some of its information. I didn't really understand the legal power play immediately. I don't like it when I have to like rewind the film to see what was going on. So there is that. And it also is really interesting how much my knowledge of Emily Blunt and who she usually plays in a film affected my expectations for Emily Blunt's character in this film, because she sort of usually plays fairly strong and focused and strong-willed, strong-minded individuals. It's not that she doesn't play that in this film, but she plays that in a fairly different, maybe subtly, but fairly different way. You're sort of expecting this totally reliable character from her, but you sort of don't really get that. I had to rewire my expectations of characters that Emily Blunt plays to sort of get this film to its fullness. But I think the tension and like the dark undercurrents and this sort of just darkness of this film, and how much that darkness is enhanced by the cinematography, the directing, I really really enjoyed this film, and the darkness and the vibe of it, thrilling, chilling undercurrents of just brutalness that it has. I really enjoy this film. It's a 93 and a gold ribbon for me. Yeah. Cyberpunk Edgerunners, the 2022 anime series. Graphically punchy, attractive, and vibrant, the revolutionary stylish slickness of Night City has found a new high, and with a grungy and intense narrative to back it up. Back it up. It's so graphical and graphic. I mean, it's so striking in the visual style, but as well as the animation and the story itself. It's grungy, it's grimy, it's attractive. I did binge this, and a friend did note that maybe this is not a show to be binged because there are so few episodes and the story is so fairly wide-reaching. It's not just a condensed story of like, this is what happens at this place. It's like over several years. I think he's right in the sense that if you watch an episode a day, you'll have a week and a half of attachment to characters, and what happens in the story would be thus more impactful to you, probably. Just theory. Game theory. There's not a bunch more I can add. The revolutionary cyberpunk style that has been slowly like developing over the years from like Blade Runner and Akira, it really has found like a new stylish high. This is a great show. I'm giving this a 94 and a gold ribbon. I mean, it's amazing. It's so good. Past Lives, the 2023 romantic drama film directed and written by Celine Song. Such softness, warmth, and wonder of the writing, picture, and soundtrack are very rare, but the simple and delicate allegorical potency of the story even more so. The direction of the film is amazing. The soundtrack is so good and so sublime, and it adds this whole new perspective to the story. And because of the like ethereal sounds of the soundtrack, you get this sort of celestial, more fundamentally existential perspective on the whole story, which is of course enhanced even more by the motif of E-MO-TION in the film, which I won't get into. My reviews don't really like to spoil anything about the movie. I just give you the vibe. The repeating visual motifs and like story beats are so powerful. There's little character revealing details of her like taking a picture and not posing him, and then later on posing him, and how that develops and reveals details about their approach to each other is so... And as I said, the Indian allegory and the many like magical metaphors it utilizes add so much seemingly simple depth to an already deceptively simple screenplay. It is sometimes a little bit inconsistent with its dialogue and a bit too long with its narrative pauses, but I really enjoyed this film. I'm giving this a 91 out of 100 and a gold ribbon. I think it's charming and beautiful and really like, it's touching. It's a really touching, sweet film. The Hunger, a short film by Contrapoints. A tantalizing, titillating, and experimental meta-commentary short film on addiction, transgenderism, and the social warfare of identity freedom. Its deadpan humor unceremoniously balanced by its existential dread. I feel like this deserves me mentioning it, just because it's so well produced. There's so much thought put into all the characters, all the conversations, all the effects, the story, the vibe of it. It's really funny. It's meaningful. It makes some good points. It's interesting that it developed so, seemingly naturally from a video essay format. I'm a person who enjoys long form essays, and a long form essay that turned into a short film, it's just like, yes. And it to be as well produced and acted and performed and written as this, come on, man, hell yeah. And it touches on some really meaningful and vulnerable details and motifs of just like normal human existence in this like predominantly social world that humans live in. I'm giving this an 86 and a silver ribbon. Yeah. And that is it for March. I'm clapping. I don't know why I'm clapping, but I'm clapping. And that's it for March. Thank you so much for watching. Do all the little clicky stuff beneath me. Go check out some of my other videos if you want. And I hope you had a great month. And I hope you have a great month. And I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye. Okay. Toodaloo.